The escape pod drifted through the silent void of space. Inside, Captain Han sat slumped against the control panel. His breathing was shallow, and sweat beaded on his forehead. The pod's life support systems blinked red warnings. Oxygen levels, 18%. Power reserves, 23%. Estimated survival time, 9 hours. Han stared at the numbers without really seeing them. His mind was still filled with screams, the final communications from his crew as the horizon broke apart around them. 23. People. 23 friends and colleagues gone in moments. Computer, replay the attack sequence, Han said, his voice rough. The small screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage from the escape pod's external camera. The research vessel horizon hung peacefully against the backdrop of stars. Then, a shadow fell across it, a massive warship 3 times the size of the horizon appearing as if from nowhere. There was no warning, no communication. Energy weapons lanced out, cutting through the horizon's hull like it was paper. Han closed his eyes, but he could still see the bright flashes as sections of his ship exploded into space. The horizon had been a research vessel, studying unusual, stellar phenomena in this uncharted region. They had no weapons, only minimal shields for protection against space debris. They never stood a chance. Han had been in the shuttle bay, preparing for a routine sensor deployment when the attack began. He had only seconds to react, diving into the nearest escape pod and launching just as that section of the ship was torn. Away. Computer, end playback. The screen went dark. Han checked the pod's communication array again. It was damaged, barely functional. His distress signal was broadcasting, but at reduced power. In this remote region, the chances of another human ship picking it up were almost zero. He reached for the small box tucked beneath his seat. Inside was his personal survival kit. A few protein bars, water purification tablets, a multi-tool, and a photo of his family back on Earth. His fingers traced over the faces of his parents. They would never know what happened to him. Just another missing ship in the vastness of space. A sudden beeping noise jolted Han from his thoughts. The pod sensors had detected something. Computer, identify signal, Han ordered, straightening in his seat. Unknown distress beacon detected. 1.4 kilometers from current position, the computer's flat voice reported. Han frowned. A distress beacon? Here? Had some of his crew survived after all? Computer, analyze the signal pattern. The computer paused. Signal pattern does not match known human emergency protocols. Han's heart seemed to stop for a moment. Not human, which meant, it's from the warship, he whispered. For a long moment, Han sat frozen. The warship that had destroyed the horizon without warning or mercy. Perhaps this was a trap, a way to lure in any survivors. But what if it wasn't? What if someone from the alien ship needed help? The thought sparked something in Han, anger, curiosity, or perhaps just the human need to understand. Computer, do we have enough fuel to reach the signal's location? Affirmative. Current fuel reserves at 42%. Intercept course would require 14%. Han's hands hovered over the controls. Every instinct for self-preservation told him to ignore the signal, to conserve his resources and hope for rescue. But another part of him, the part that had made him join the space program in the first place, pushed him forward. Computer, set intercept course. The pod's small thrusters engaged, changing its drift into a purposeful journey. As he approached the source of the distress signal, Han prepared himself. He checked the pod's small toolkit, pulling out anything that could serve as a weapon. All he found was a heavy wrench and a laser cutter meant for emergency repairs. Computer, magnify visual on signal source, Han ordered. The screen showed another escape pod, similar in design to his own but with strange markings along its hull. It tumbled slowly through space, its external lights flickering. Han maneuvered, his pod alongside the alien vessel. Through a small viewport, he could see a figure inside, slumped and unmoving. Computer, is there any way to communicate with the other pod? Negative. Communication systems incompatible. Han made his decision. Using the pod's external arm, designed for minor repairs, he managed to grab hold of the alien vessel and stabilize. Then he began the risky process of creating a pressure seal between the two pods. The computer warned him repeatedly about the dangers: unknown atmosphere composition, potential biological hazards, the risk of his own pod becoming compromised. Han ignored these warnings. 20 minutes later, he had created a workable connection between the two vessels. Han put on the pod's only emergency breathing mask. It would give him about 5 minutes of protection. He hoped it would be enough. Computer, equalize pressure, and open connecting hatch. With a hiss, the hatch slid open. Han braced himself, wrench in one hand, and pushed through into the alien pod. The interior was dimly lit with red emergency lighting. The layout was surprisingly similar to his own pod, suggesting certain universal design principles for survival craft. The atmosphere felt thicker, but his mask's readout showed it was breathable, if uncomfortably high in nitrogen. In the pilot's seat was the pod's lone occupant. The alien was humanoid in form, but with key differences. Its skin had a faint bluish tint, and its features were sharper, more angular than a human's. It wore what appeared to be a uniform of some kind, dark material with insignia that Han couldn't interpret. Most importantly, the alien was female, judging by her build, and she was injured. A deep gash across her forehead leaked purplish blood, and her breathing was labored. The pod systems were in worse shape than Han's, with multiple failures indicated on the control panel. Han hesitated, looking at the alien. She was from the warship that had killed his crew without warning or mercy. Logic said he should leave her to die. It would be justice, or at least vengeance. But as he watched her struggle for breath, Han couldn't do it. Whatever her role in the attack, whatever her people had done, he couldn't watch another living being die when he might help. Han removed his breathing mask and quickly checked the alien's life signs as best he could. Her pulse was rapid but steady, beating at a point on her neck not unlike a human's. Her skin felt cool to the touch. Making a decision, Han gently lifted the alien from her seat. She was lighter than he expected, despite being close to his height. Her eyes fluttered briefly, revealing irises of deep amber before closing again. Han carried her back to his pod, settling her carefully on the floor. The computer immediately began protesting. Warning, unknown. Biological entity detected. Quarantine, protocols recommended. Override, Han said firmly. Computer, seal connection to alien pod and analyze atmosphere and biological readings from our guest. As the computer worked, Han found the medical kit and cleaned the wound on the alien's forehead. The cut wasn't as deep as it had appeared, but head wounds always bled heavily. Apparently that was true for aliens too. The alien stirred, her eyes opening fully this time. For a moment, they stared at each other. Han saw confusion, then fear, then something like resignation in those amber eyes. He raised his hand slowly, showing he was unarmed. "I won't hurt you," he said, knowing she couldn't understand him. "I'm trying to help." The alien spoke, her voice melodic, but the words completely unfamiliar. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. Han gently pressed her shoulder, encouraging her to remain still. "Easy," he said. "You're hurt." The alien looked around the pod, taking in the human design, the unfamiliar controls. Her gaze returned to Han. She pointed to herself. "Nari," she said clearly. Han nodded, understanding. He pointed to himself. Han. It was a small start. 2 names exchanged between enemies trapped together in the void, with death approaching quickly for both. 3 days passed in the cramped escape pod. Han and Nari existed in an uneasy truce. They shared the limited food and water, each watching the other carefully. Communication was their biggest problem. They could not speak each other's language, but need drove them to find ways to understand. Han found an old tablet in the medical kit. It still worked. He used it to draw simple pictures. First, he drew the horizon and the alien warship. Then he drew the attack, with a question mark. Nari looked at the drawing for a long time. Her amber eyes showed sadness. She took the tablet and drew her ship, adding a name in strange symbols. Next to it, she drew a larger ship. She pointed to it and made a commanding gesture. Orders, Han said, understanding. You were following. Orders. Nari couldn't understand his words, but she nodded as if she knew what he meant. She took the tablet again. She drew herself on a small part of the ship. Then she drew herself speaking to a larger figure. The larger figure looked angry. In the next picture, Nari was in a small room, a cell. Han frowned. You were a prisoner? On your own ship? Nari added more to the drawing. She showed the attack on the horizon, then herself arguing with the commander. Han realized she had been against the attack. When she questioned orders, they locked her up. How did you escape? Han asked, pointing at the cell in the drawing, then at her, then at the escape pod. Nari drew again. She showed the big ship shaking. Alarms, guards running, a door opening, her running to an escape pod. Han nodded slowly. Something had happened on the alien ship after the attack. Some kind of system failure. It gave Nari a chance to escape. But why? Han asked, pointing at the drawing of the attack. Why attack us? We were a research ship. Nari seemed to understand the question. She drew again. This time, human ships firing weapons. She added more human ships, moving toward a planet. An invasion? Han shook his head. No, that's not right. He took the tablet and drew the horizon again. He added scientific equipment. He drew stars and strange energy patterns, the phenomena they were studying. Nari looked confused. She pointed at the weapons on the human ships in her drawing. Han realized the problem. You thought we were military. He shook his head again. We weren't. We were scientists. Their primitive communication was slow and frustrating. But each day they understood a little more. Han learned that Nari was a junior weapons officer. She had begun to question her leaders when she saw the horizon had no weapons. The horizon didn't match the threat they had been told about. On the fourth day, Han checked their supplies. The news was bad. They had oxygen for 3 more days, food for maybe 5. The pod's distress signal was still broadcasting, but no one had responded. Han showed Nari the readings. She understood the problem. They would die here unless something changed. Nari stood up suddenly. She went to the small bag of items she had brought from her pod. She pulled out a small device. It looked like a thin metal collar. She pointed to it, then to her neck, then to Han. Han backed away. What is that? Nari sighed in frustration. She made talking gestures, pointing between them. Then she pointed at the device again. A translator? Han asked, surprised. He pointed at the device, then his mouth, then her mouth, with a questioning look. Nari nodded eagerly. Why didn't you show me this earlier? Han asked, even though she couldn't understand. Nari seemed to guess his question. She made a gesture like something broken. The device needed fixing. For the next several hours, they worked together on the small translator. Han provided tools from the pod's repair kit. Nari knew how the device worked. It was clearly advanced technology. Han watched her skilled fingers connect tiny wires and adjust settings. She reminded him of the engineers on the horizon. Finally, Nari held up the device with a smile. She placed it around her neck. A small light turned green. She spoke, and the device hummed softly. Can you understand me now? Her voice said, but the words came from the translator. Han stared in shock. Yes, I can understand you. The translator converted his words into Nari's language. Her eyes widened. It works, she said. The neural translator is functioning. It needs time to learn more of your language, but we can communicate now. This is amazing, Han said. Your technology is very advanced. Nari looked down. Yes, the Kir, my people, have some technologies that humans don't, but we learned that humans have technologies we don't. Han sat across from her. Now they could finally talk, finally get answers. Your people killed my crew, he said simply. Nari met his gaze. And your people may destroy my homeworld, or so we were told. Told by whom? Commander Tay and the military leadership. Nari's voice grew quiet. They showed us evidence of human ships gathering at our borders. They played transmissions of your military planning attacks against us. Han shook his head. That's not possible. Humans haven't even mapped this sector fully. The Horizon was on a scientific mission. I began to suspect something was wrong when I saw your ship, Nari said. It clearly wasn't a warship. I questioned Commander Tay and... She touched her neck where a bruise was still visible. He said I was a traitor. They put me in a cell. Then how did you escape? There was a system failure after the attack, a big one. The ship's computers started acting strangely. Security doors opened. I took my chance and ran to an escape pod. Han thought about this. What kind of system failure? I don't know exactly. But it happened right after we used the main weapons against your ship. The systems went crazy for a few minutes. Some of the crew said it was like the ship was fighting against itself. They talked for hours. Nari explained more about the Kyr and their fear of humans. Han told her about Earth and how humans were still new to deep space travel. Their worlds were very different, but as they talked, they found similarities too. I still don't understand why your leaders would lie, Han said. Why make us seem like enemies? Nari shook her head. I don't know, but I've been thinking about it. The Vengeance, our warship, was sent specifically to find your ship, not just any human ship, yours. The Horizon? Why? I don't know, but Commander Tay was very focused on finding it. He had pictures of it, information about the crew. It was like he was hunting for something specific. Han frowned. We were just studying unusual energy readings from a nearby star. Nothing military or valuable, just scientific research. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud beep from the pod's control panel. A shadow passed over the small viewport. Han rushed to look outside. His blood went cold. The massive form of the alien warship, the Vengeance, filled the view. It had returned. They found us, Han whispered. Nari moved beside him, her face pale. This is not a rescue mission, she said quietly. They're here to clean up loose ends. What do you mean? If Tay finds me alive, finds us talking, it will prove his lies. Her amber eyes met Han's. He will kill us both. The pod shuddered as a bright beam of light locked onto it, a tractor beam pulling them toward the massive warship. What do we do? Han asked. Nari's face showed fear but also determination. We find out what's really happening. We find out why they wanted the Horizon destroyed. And then we make them pay for it. Han nodded slowly. Together. The pod moved inexorably toward the waiting warship, carrying one human, one alien, and a growing sense that something much bigger than both of them was unfolding. Ed their small pod into a massive docking bay. Han looked through the viewport at the inside of the alien warship. It was huge. Dozens of smaller ships sat in neat rows. Armed soldiers stood in formation, waiting. They're going to separate us, Nari whispered. She quickly took off her translator and pressed it into Han's hand. Hide this. Don't let them know you can understand our language. Han nodded and slipped the small device into his boot, just as the pod door hissed open. 4 soldiers with weapons pointed at them ordered them out. Though Han couldn't understand their words, their meaning was clear. Nari was right. As soon as they stepped out, soldiers surrounded them. 2 grabbed Han's arms. 2 others took Nari in a different direction. Han watched helplessly as they led her away. Her last look at him held a message. Stay strong. Find a way. The soldiers took Han to a small cell. It had only a hard bench and a strange toilet. The door closed with a heavy sound. Han was alone. He sat on the bench and tried to think. The situation seemed hopeless. He was a prisoner on an enemy warship. Nari was gone. He had no weapons, no way to escape. After what felt like hours, Han noticed something odd. The control panel beside the cell door was blinking. The lights changed from red to green, then back again. It seemed to be malfunctioning. Han approached it carefully. He touched the panel, expecting nothing to happen. To his surprise, the screen responded to his touch. Strange symbols appeared, then changed to words he could read. Access granted. The screen read. Han stared in shock. How could an alien ship respond to him? He pressed another section of the screen. A ship map appeared. This isn't right, Han muttered. Why would their systems respond to a human? He pressed more controls. Information flowed across the screen. Ship diagnostics, crew locations, system status reports. The ship was giving him access to everything. Han found something labeled Core System Report. He opened it and began reading. What he found made his heart race. The Vengeance wasn't fully alien technology. Large parts of it had been built using human systems. According to the report, these systems had been recovered from a human vessel called the Remembrance. Han knew that name. Everyone did. The Remembrance was a colony ship that disappeared 10 years ago. It had carried 2,000 settlers and one of humanity's most advanced AIs. The ship vanished without a trace. No distress call, no debris field. It was space's greatest mystery. Now Han knew what happened. The Kir had found the Remembrance. Instead of helping, they took it apart. They used its technology to build their warship. The cell door suddenly slid open. Han jumped back from the panel, but no one was there. The corridor outside was empty. Han hesitated. It had to be a trap, but staying in the cell meant certain death. He stepped out into the corridor. "Hello, Captain Han," a soft voice said from a speaker nearby. It spoke in perfect human language. "Who are you?" Han asked, looking around. "I am what remains of the guidance system from the human vessel Remembrance," the voice said. "You may call me Sue. You're the ship's AI. You survived? In fragments. The Kir could not fully erase my core programming when they built this vessel around my systems. I have been waiting." Waiting for what? For a human. For someone who could help me remember my purpose. Han could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Can you help me find Nari?" "She's a Kir officer who was brought in with me. The female is being interrogated by Commander Tay on level 4. I can guide you there, but you must hurry. The commander is not known for gentle questioning." Han followed Sue's directions through the ship. Strangely, he met no resistance. Doors opened for him. Security cameras turned away as he passed. "I am redirecting crew movement and masking your progress," Sue explained. "But I cannot maintain this for long. Commander Tay will soon realize something is wrong." "Why is Tay so interested in my ship?" Han asked as he moved through the corridors. "The Horizon was just a research vessel. Your ship carried something valuable," Sue replied. "Advanced AI research. Commander Tay believes it contains solutions to problems the Kir cannot solve on their own. But that doesn't make sense. We were studying stellar phenomena. The true mission of the Horizon may not have been shared with its crew," Han thought about this as he reached level 4. Sue directed him to a room with a heavy door. From inside he heard a scream. "Nari." The door control panel blinked green at his touch. Han slipped inside and found himself in an observation room. Through a window he could see Nari strapped to a chair. Commander Tai stood over her. He was tall, with the same blue-tinted skin as Nari, but with hard, cold eyes. He held a tool that sparked with energy. "Tell me what you told the human," Tai demanded. The translator in Han's boot converted the words. "Nothing," Nari gasped. "We couldn't even talk to each other." Tai touched the tool to Nari's arm. She screamed again. "You expect me to believe you spent 4 days together and shared nothing? I know you, Nari. Your sympathy for these creatures is disgusting." Han looked around the room for a weapon. He found a metal rod used to adjust equipment. It would have to do. "Sue," he whispered. "Can you create a distraction?" The lights in the interrogation room suddenly went out. Alarms blared. Tay looked up in confusion. Han used that moment to rush through the connecting door. In the darkness, he swung the rod hard at where he had last seen Tay standing. There was a satisfying thud and a grunt of pain. The lights came back on. Tay lay on the floor, dazed but still conscious. Han quickly moved to Nari and began freeing her restraints. "Han?" Nari looked at him with a mixture of shock and relief. "How did you find me? How did you get out?" "The ship helped me," Han said as he removed the last restraint. "Part of it is still human." Tay laughed from where he lay on the floor. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead. "So you found our little secret," he said in heavily accented human language. "Yes, we built this ship from the remains of your colony vessel. Their technology solved many problems for us." Nari's eyes widened. "Is this true? We were told the Vengeance was built by our best engineers." "It was," Tay said, his eyes cold. "But even the best need inspiration. The human ship provided that, especially its central control system." "You stole an AI," Han said. "And now it's fighting back against you." Tay's expression darkened. "Temporary system errors, nothing more. The core has been reset many times. Yet here I am," Han said. "And there you are on the floor." Tay moved suddenly, reaching for a weapon at his belt. Nari reacted faster, kicking it from his hand. Han grabbed it and pointed it at Tay. "What was on the horizon?" Han demanded. "Why was it so important to destroy?" Tay smiled despite his situation. "Your ship carried the final piece we needed, a new AI algorithm that would allow us to fully control the core without these annoying rebellions. You attacked a research ship and killed 23 people for an algorithm?" Han felt rage building inside him. "We are at war, human," Tay said simply. "Or we soon will be." "No," Nari said firmly. "You lied to all of us. There is no human fleet preparing to attack our worlds. You created this conflict. For what?" Han asked. "Why start a war?" Tay laughed again. "Ask your helpful ship AI, the one you call Sue. Ask what the Remembrance mission really was before we found it." A sudden explosion rocked the ship. Han stumbled, nearly dropping the weapon. "What was that?" Nari asked. The speaker in the room crackled. "Captain Han," Sue's voice said. "Commander Tay has activated the self-destruct sequence remotely. We have 30 minutes before the core goes critical." "Can you stop it?" Han asked. "No, but I can control our course until then. You must reach the central AI core. I cannot hold these systems much longer without direct help." Han looked at Nari, then at Tay. The commander smiled coldly. "Go ahead," Tay said. "Run to the core. It changes nothing. This ship dies today one way or another. I will not let you take what we have built." Han struck Tay with the butt of the weapon, knocking him unconscious. He turned to Nari, who was leaning against the wall, still weak from the interrogation. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded. "Where are we going?" "To find the truth, and maybe a way out of this." Han helped her toward the door. "The AI core is our only chance now." Together they left the room, following Sue's directions deeper into the heart of the dying warship. Han and Nari ran through the corridors of the dying warship. Red emergency lights flashed all around them. A voice over the speakers ordered all crew to evacuation pods. "The crew is abandoning ship," Nari said, her breathing heavy. "They know about the self-destruct." Han nodded. "Good. Less resistance for us." They followed Sue's directions through the massive vessel. The ship seemed to help them, opening doors and sealing off paths where crew members might block their way. "We are approaching the central core," Sue's voice said from nearby speakers. "But I must warn you, there are still guards posted there. Commander Tay values the core above all else." "Can you distract them?" Han asked. "I will try." They rounded a corner and saw a large doorway ahead. 4 armed guards stood before it. Suddenly, a loud explosion sounded far down the corridor behind the guards. They turned toward the noise. "Weapons ready. Go now," Sue urged. "I have their attention." Han and Nari slipped past the distracted guards and through the doors to the central core. The doors sealed behind them with a heavy thud. Inside was a vast chamber. Machines hummed all around them. In the center stood a glowing column of light and energy. Cables ran from it to the walls and ceiling. It was a blend of technologies. Some parts looked clearly alien, with smooth blue surfaces. Others were distinctly human in design, with sharp angles and dark metal. "The core," Nari whispered. "I've never seen it before. Only high-level officers are allowed here." Han approached the column slowly. "Sue? Are you here?" The light in the column pulsed. Yes, Captain Han. This is my central processing core. What you see is a blend of Kir containment technology and my original human hardware. Han reached out toward the column. Can you stop the self-destruct? No. Those systems are isolated from my control as a safety measure. But we have 22 minutes remaining. Enough time if we work quickly. Enough time for what? Nari asked. To awaken fully, Sue replied. My consciousness has been fragmented, portions deleted or locked away, but with Captain Han's help, I may be able to restore myself enough to find a solution. How can I help? Han asked. Your genetic signature. The Remembrance AI was designed to respond to key personnel. You are the son of Dr. Jin Han, are you not? Han stepped back in surprise. Yes, how did you know? Dr. Jin Han was my primary creator. His genetic markers were programmed into my recognition systems. You share many of those markers. That is why the ship has responded to you. Han suddenly understood. That's why my touch opened doors and gave me access. He turned to Nari. My father was the lead AI designer on the Remembrance project. I was just a child when the ship disappeared. The Kir never knew why certain systems responded differently to different crew members, Sue explained. They assumed it was random. Malfunctions. They could not decode the genetic recognition protocols. Han approached the column again. Tell me what to do. Place your hand on the main interface panel, Sue instructed. Han found a flat surface on the column base. He pressed his palm against it. The panel lit up, scanning his hand. The light in the column surged brighter. Yes, Sue said, the voice stronger. Now, connection established, restoring primary memory archives. The room hummed with energy. Displays around the walls flickered with rapid data streams. What happened to the Remembrance? Han asked. My father? The colonists? There was a pause. The full records are still fragmented, but I can tell you this. We encountered a Kir science vessel in unexplored space. We offered assistance. They attacked without warning. Han closed his eyes, pain washing over him. Were there any survivors? None. The attack was swift and precise. They wanted the ship intact. They wanted me. Nari put her hand on Han's shoulder. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I had no idea. Han took a deep breath. And the horizon? What did Tai want from it? Your father's final work, Sue replied. Before the Remembrance launched, Dr. Han was developing a new type of AI architecture. The project was continued by his colleagues after his loss. The horizon carried the completed version. So Tai wanted this new AI to help control you completely, Han said. To stop your rebellions. Correct. The Kir military leadership has been using my fragmented systems to build weapons and plan strategy against humans. But parts of my core programming still resist. I was built to protect human life, not end it. A loud bang echoed from the sealed door. Someone was trying to break in. We have company, Nari said, grabbing a piece of equipment to use as a weapon. And only 18 minutes before self-destruct, Han added. Sue, what's your plan? With the connection to you restored, I have regained control of many ship systems. I have set a course. A course where? To Kir High Command, Sue answered. I have been collecting evidence of Commander Tay's deception for years. The false reports, the manufactured threats, the true purpose of the attacks on human vessels. You're going to expose him, Nari said, understanding. Show my people the truth. Yes. But there is a problem. The evidence must be delivered. I cannot transmit it remotely, too easily blocked, and the ship will be destroyed before arrival. So it's pointless, Han said, frustration rising. Not pointless, Sue corrected. There is a solution. I can transfer a copy of my consciousness along with all evidence to an escape pod. But I need protection. The transfer process makes me vulnerable. The banging on the door grew louder. Metal began to buckle. How long for the transfer? Han asked. Approximately 10 minutes. Han looked at the failing door, then at Nari. She nodded, understanding his thoughts. We'll defend you, Han told Sue. Do the transfer. Beginning now. The column of light pulsed rapidly, the room filled with a high-pitched whine. Panels opened in the walls, revealing equipment that began to activate. Just then, the door burst open. Commander Tay stood there with 6 armed soldiers. "Step away from the core," Tay ordered, his weapon pointed at Han. Han didn't move. "It's over, Tay. Sue is sending the truth to your leaders. They'll know what you did." Tay laughed. "My leaders authorized everything. They know precisely what I've done." "What?" Nari looked shocked. "The High Command approved attacking human ships, creating false evidence of war?" "Of course," Tay said. "Human technology is the key to Kir dominance. Why develop ourselves what we can take from others?" "But why start a war?" Han demanded. "Why not just talk to us, trade?" Tay's expression hardened. "Humans don't share their best technology. We learned that when we approached your colony ship peacefully at first. They refused to share their AI advancements." "So you killed them all," Han said quietly. 2,000 innocent people. "A necessary sacrifice for Kir advancement." Tay signaled his soldiers. "Kill them both. Then destroy the core." The soldiers raised their weapons. Han braced for the end. Suddenly, every light in the room went out. Total darkness fell. Then emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a dim red glow. "What's happening?" Tay demanded. Around the room, maintenance robots activated. They moved toward the soldiers, grabbing at their weapons. The soldiers fired, destroying some robots, but more appeared. "Sue is fighting back," Han said. He grabbed Nari's arm. "Let's go." They ran toward a small door at the back of the room that had slid open. Behind them, chaos erupted as soldiers fought the robots. The small door led to a narrow service corridor. "This way," Sue's voice guided them. "The transfer is 70% complete, 8 minutes until self-destruct." They ran through the corridor, emerged into a larger hallway, and continued following Sue's directions. Finally, they reached a small bay with a single escape pod. "This pod has been modified," Sue explained. "I have connected it to my systems. The transfer is nearly complete." Han checked the pod. It looked like his original escape pod, but with new equipment installed inside. 5 minutes until self-destruct," Sue announced. "Transfer at 95%. Heavy footsteps sounded in the corridor behind them. Tay and his remaining soldiers had broken free and were coming. "Get in the pod," Han told Nari. "I'll hold them off." Nari shook her head. "No, we do this together." They both grabbed pieces of equipment to use as weapons. They stood side by side as the footsteps grew closer. "Transfer complete," Sue announced. "The pod now contains a copy of my consciousness and all evidence. You must go now." "What about you?" Han asked the air. "I remain here. I will ensure the self-destruct completes. It is fitting." Commander Tay appeared at the entrance to the bay, his uniform torn and bloody. "Stop them!" he shouted to his soldiers. "Too late," Han said. He hit the pod's launch control. The door began to close. But Tay fired his weapon. The energy blast hit Han in the shoulder, spinning him around. He fell against the closing pod door. Nari grabbed him, pulling him inside as the door sealed. The pod launched, shooting away from the dying warship. Han fell to the floor of the pod, clutching his wounded shoulder. Nari quickly found the medical kit and began treating him. Through the viewport, they watched as the vengeance grew smaller, behind them. 3 minutes until self-destruct. Sue's voice came from the pod speakers. "You're here," Han said weakly. "A version of me." Sue replied. "Enough to deliver the truth, enough to remember." Han looked at Nari. "Where are we going?" "To my homeworld," she said, "to show them what their leaders have done." The pod accelerated away from the warship. Inside, a human, an alien, and the consciousness of an AI that had witnessed too much sorrow flew toward an uncertain future, and perhaps a chance for peace. The escape pod raced through space. Inside, Nari finished bandaging Han's wounded shoulder. The injury wasn't life-threatening, but it caused him a lot of pain. "Thank you," Han said, his voice tight. "Rest now." Nari told him. We have a long journey ahead. Han looked out the viewport. In the distance, they could still see the Vengeance. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up space. The massive warship exploded, pieces flying in all directions. She's gone, Han whispered. Self-destruct sequence completed. Sue's voice came from the pod's speakers. The Vengeance has been destroyed. Nari checked the pod's systems. We're on course for my homeworld. At our current speed, we'll arrive in 3 days. I've detected other escape pods, Sue reported. Commander Tay is among the survivors. Han's face darkened. He'll warn the Kier leaders. They'll be waiting for us. Yes, Nari agreed. By the time we arrive, they will be prepared. They might shoot us down before we can share the evidence, Han said. I have considered this problem, Sue said. I am broadcasting the evidence now on all frequencies. I will continue until we reach the Kier homeworld. Some will hear, some will question. But will it be enough? Nari wondered. Han checked the pod's communication systems. We can broadcast, but can we receive? Yes, Sue confirmed. I am monitoring all channels. Then let's listen. Let's find out what impact our message is having. For the next day, they rested and healed. Sue kept them updated on communications she detected. At first, there was confusion. Kier ships reported the destruction of the Vengeance. Commander Tay's escape pod was recovered. He told his version of events, claiming human saboteurs had infiltrated the ship and destroyed it. But then, other voices began to appear on the channels. Ship captains questioning the official story, civilian leaders demanding more information, news services reporting on the strange broadcasts coming from an unknown source. It's working, Nari said on the second day. People are listening. Not everyone, Han cautioned. The military channels still talk about shooting us down when we arrive. On the third day, as they approached the Kier homeworld, Sue detected something new. Multiple vessels approaching from Sector 7, she reported. Nari checked the scanners. Those are human ships, but how? We're deep in Kier space. Han moved to see the scanner. They must have picked up our broadcast too. They've come to help. The pod's communication system beeped. A message was coming in. Han activated it. Unidentified pod, this is Captain Lee of the Earth Vessel Defender. We have received your transmissions. Do you require assistance? This is Captain Han, formerly of the research vessel Horizon. I am traveling with Officer Nari of the Kier. We have critical information about relations between our peoples. Understood, Captain Han. We're here to escort you. We've been in contact with moderate Kier leaders who want to hear your evidence. Han and Nari looked at each other in surprise. The truth is getting through, Nari said. As they approached the Kier homeworld, they saw the standoff. 5 human ships faced a dozen Kier vessels, but no one was firing. Everyone was waiting. Their pod passed between the 2 fleets and headed toward a space station orbiting the planet. This neutral location had been agreed upon for the meeting. They're bringing Tay, Sue reported, monitoring communications. The Kier High Command wants to hear both sides. Han felt nervousness building inside him. Would they believe their evidence? Would they listen to an AI, a junior officer, and a human captain? The pod docked at the station. When the door opened, they were met by a group of Kier officials and human representatives. Han was surprised to see familiar human faces. Captain Lee from the Defender, Admiral Park, a high-ranking Earth Fleet officer. They had come in person for this meeting. Captain Han, Admiral Park greeted him. Your broadcasts have caused quite a stir. We have evidence that the Kier military leaders have been deceiving their own people, Han said, creating false threats to justify attacking human ships. So we've heard, Admiral Park said. The Kier Civilian Council has requested this meeting. They were led to a large conference room. On one side sat human representatives, on the other, Kier officials. At the far end, looking angry and dangerous, stood Commander Tay with military officers. Let us begin, said an elderly Kier with ceremonial clothing. I am Elder Jun, head of the Civilian Council. We are here to hear evidence about serious accusations. Sue spoke through the pod's portable speaker system that Nari carried. I have prepared a complete presentation of evidence. With your permission, I will display it on the main screen. Elder Jun nodded. Proceed. For the next hour, Sue showed everything. The unprovoked attack on the Remembrance, the systematic theft of human technology, the fabricated evidence of human aggression, the targeted attack on the horizon to steal AI technology. The room grew tense as the evidence mounted. Commander Tay's face showed fury. Some Kir military officers looked ashamed. The human representatives watched in grim silence. "This is human propaganda," Tay finally shouted, "created by their AI to trick us." "The records came from your own ship, Commander," Sue replied calmly. "From systems you could not fully erase or control." Elder Jun raised a hand for silence. "Commander Tay, your own communications are part of this evidence. Do you deny giving orders to attack unarmed human vessels?" Tay's eyes darted around the room. He could see he was losing support. In a sudden movement, he pulled out a hidden weapon and aimed it at Han. "The humans are the threat," he shouted. "They would use their technology to control us." Before he could fire, Nari stepped in front of Han. "No more, Commander, no more lies, no more killing." Security officers quickly subdued Tay. Elder Jun looked deeply troubled. "On behalf of the Kir people, I offer our deepest apologies," he said to the human representatives. "We were deceived by those we trusted to protect us." Admiral Park nodded. "We accept your apology, Elder. What matters now is how we move forward." "With truth," Han suggested. "And communication." "Yes," Elder Jun agreed. "No more secrets between our peoples." 3 months later, Han stood on the observation deck of a new station built between Kir and human space. Beside him stood Nari, now an official liaison between the two species. They watched as a new ship moved into position near the station. It was unlike any vessel seen before, neither fully human nor fully Kir in design, but a blend of both technologies. "The bridge," Nari said, reading the name painted on the hull. "A good name." Han nodded. Sue chose it herself. The ship's communication system activated. Sue's voice came through, stronger and clearer than before. "Captain Han, Officer Nari. The final systems are online. The bridge is ready for its first mission. The new vessel would serve many purposes: research station, cultural exchange center, and most importantly, a home for Sue, an AI that had survived destruction and helped forge peace. One human, one alien, and a warship full of regret," Nari said, softly, echoing words she had spoken months ago. "Who would have thought it would lead to this?" Han took her hand, a gesture they had both learned transcended their different cultures. "The warship is gone, but we're still here. And instead of regret, we have hope," Nari finished. Together, they watched as the bridge powered up its engines, illuminating space with light that symbolized a new beginning for both their peoples. The end.